Story 1. I spoke with my spine surgeon. He said that in 30 years they will be able to regenerate the gel-like center of spinal discs, practically giving you a new back. A little background. I had herniated the same 2 discs in my lower back twice by the time I was 30. My doctor said that by the time I am 50 I will most likely need back surgery, but it should not be a major problem because they will be able to replace the gel-like center of the discs. I am not sure of the technical name. Story 2. Research into bacteriophages, viruses that infect bacteria, could cure antibiotic-resistant bacteria such as methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Story 3. Gene therapy is no longer science fiction. My girlfriend received Luxturna treatment, and the results have been amazing. She used to be unable to see at night, and now she can guide herself without a cane. More treatments like that will become standard before we realize it. Story 4. While not an unknown technology, deepfake technology is still in its infancy, and it terrifies me. We already live in a time when people take irrefutable video evidence and somehow rationalize away what they are seeing. People no longer listen to science. Truth has become frighteningly subjective. Think of all the videos of police shootings, political scandals, whistleblowers, assassinations, and similar events. Now add a technology that can create doubt about the validity of what we see. Provides the perfect excuse to extinguish the last traces of logical thought. It is a powerful tool to create chaos and discord. Politicians will use it to create confusion and doubt, to sow fear, construct false narratives, and delegitimize opponents, or to cast doubt on crimes and acts they have committed. What was once impossible to rationalize away will become another tool of misinformation and an engine for sowing doubt. Story 5. Realistically, carbon grids could reproduce the catalytic effects of rhodium, which is commonly used in catalytic converters. Rhodium is currently trading at $13,000 per ounce, after a large price spike caused by worldwide emissions restrictions that took effect in 2020. In short, there are only 2 places on Earth where rhodium is produced effectively, and supplies are likely to be depleted well before fossil fuels and other essential building materials. Replacing rhodium with carbon for catalytic applications could save global manufacturers hundreds of billions of dollars per year and make many consumer goods more affordable. In theory, those affordability gains depend on the technical feasibility and cost of implementing carbon-based catalysts. Story 6. Lithium-sulfur batteries are in development now that could make battery storage much cheaper than current lithium-ion and lithium-polymer batteries. Lower-cost batteries mean more people can afford to use them, resulting in more internal combustion engines being replaced with electric motors. Regarding battery recycling, every element in a battery can be extracted and recycled into new batteries, especially lithium. A former founding member of Tesla has opened a plant to do just that. Story 7. I saw a new solar panel film that is like plastic wrap and adheres to windows. It is a clear, thin film that covers windows and collects solar power. You do not need large rooftop panels. On city skyscrapers, the building sides offer more surface area than the roof, so east and west-facing sides could have nearly invisible solar panels. Story 8. Did you know that implants have been developed that can grow with you? This means children with faulty heart valves or damaged organs that require a synthetic element can undergo one surgery when they are young and not need further replacement surgeries as they grow. My housemate is a chemical engineer and told me all about it. I thought it was interesting. Edit. I woke up to 54,000 likes. I'm from Melbourne. Glad you found it interesting. I wish I knew about it from my own field, but lawyers do not create technology. Since last year, conveyancing in Victoria has not been done on paper. It is all handled using electronic conveyancing software. It is not as exciting, but it is a major change for lawyers. Many people asked why my housemate, a chemical engineer, shares a house. I study law and our other housemate studies architecture. We live together in Melbourne by choice. In our 20s in Melbourne, it is unusual not to have housemates. That is odd to her because she is from Sweden, where it is more common to move in with a partner or live alone. In Sweden, in larger cities such as Stockholm and Gothenburg, there are waiting lists for apartments. You add your name, and your position on the list determines your priority for a flat. Och för svenskt folk, jag älskar Linköpings hockeyklubb. Story 9. Crops that can grow anywhere are an important development. Drought and insects would no longer affect growth, which would decrease poverty and famine. Story 10. Solid-state batteries may offer larger capacity, much faster charging, and significantly longer life. Update. I posted this late at night based on a video I watched months ago. After reading the responses, I learned I was not entirely correct, and solid-state batteries will likely not replace lithium-ion technology. Still cool, though. Story 11. Biochips are now a reality. They allow testing drugs and treatments using a person's genetics without testing on the person, reducing the need for animal testing by using cohorts of chip-based test subjects. With biochips, researchers can identify a cure or treatment and know it will work before prescribing it. There are three main kinds of biochips: deoxyribonucleic acid microarrays, protein microarrays, and microfluidic chips. Protein chips, especially functional microarrays, can display peptides, lipids, or other molecules. Story 12. I'm surprised no one has said it yet, but automation is becoming incredibly sophisticated. There will be no need for many people to work in factories. I went to an assembly expo and the manufacturing technology today is mind-blowing. Some jobs still require humans, but many roles are becoming foolproof, so tasks that once required skill can now be done by lower-cost, lower-skill workers. I think this is ultimately a good thing, but who knows how long it will take for society to catch up with technology. Story 13. Batteries containing nuclear waste are encased in synthetic diamond. They can reportedly last thousands of years without recharging and are claimed to be perfectly safe. They are currently being trialed in the United Kingdom. Story 14. 3D printing at home. Imagine downloading the blueprints of whatever you need, customizing them, and having them printed overnight and in your hands the next day. What is now a hobby will soon be a common household tool. Story 15. My bet is on clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, a genetic technology that enables deoxyribonucleic acid modification in living organisms at a very low cost. Sadly, I cannot predict whether the impact will be positive. Story 16. The invention of hypersonic missiles is starting an arms race not seen since the Cold War, and no one seems to care. Story 17. Advances in batteries and the ability to store electrical energy would have a major impact. Many electronic devices are limited by available battery power, and progress in battery technology has largely stagnated. There are a few promising approaches but no widely deployed breakthroughs. A significant advance would unlock the potential of many existing technologies that are currently impractical. This applies not only to smartphones but to any battery-powered device, particularly electric cars. There would also be important applications for renewable energy. Thank you to everyone who shared information. The comments contain valuable details. Story 18. I manage a portfolio of technologies at a large research university, so I will give my opinion on a few of the most underrated yet promising areas in terms of impact. 1. Biologically derived electrodes and batteries. 2. Agricultural robotics such as pickers, sorters, and computer vision for identification, including phenotyping. 3. Advanced nanocomposite materials for magnetic devices. 4. Artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms for medical imaging. 5. Brain-to-computer interfaces. 6. Sensors in many applications. I cannot provide further details. 7. Artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms for traffic management. 8. Self-driving vehicles remain underrated. 9. Autonomous drone swarm technologies for manufacturing, emergency rescue, mapping, and related tasks. 10. Various carbon nanotube technologies. 11. Emotion and identification recognition through voice and gait using artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms. These are some of the most promising areas I have seen. Success depends on finding viable business models, and some efforts will fail to commercialize. Story 19. Zero-knowledge succinct non-interactive arguments of knowledge are a new cryptographic primitive that is more powerful than previous discoveries and are gaining significant traction in the cryptography community. They are especially important in this age of privacy and security concerns. Imagine a world where you can prove you are financially stable to rent a property without handing over a bank statement or a job offer. Imagine applying for a job based solely on your credentials without revealing personal information, including race, gender, or even your name, while still giving the employer a guarantee that the information on your resume is true. Imagine proving to the government that you paid your taxes correctly without telling them who you are, how much you earn, or how much tax you paid. These capabilities are difficult today, but zero-knowledge, succinct, non-interactive arguments of knowledge can make them a reality in the near future. They can do this in a way that is inexpensive and scalable, meaning a cryptographic proof can be verified in seconds or less on a smartphone or a Raspberry Pi. I would not be surprised if, in a few years, zero-knowledge, succinct, non-interactive arguments of knowledge become a standard security protocol in browsers and serve as the next layer of protection on top of Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Browsers will soon include much stronger security and privacy features than we thought possible a few years ago. Story 20. Brain-computer interfaces have been used to control games with the mind, enable direct mind-to-mind communication, and make prosthetic limbs easier to control. Computer-brain interfaces have been used to restore sight to a blind person using camera glasses and to make monkeys experience sensations in virtual reality that were not actually present. If both technologies are perfected, they could enable many powerful applications. Story 21. Organic circuitry is a real technology. Using a short-chain carbon molecule with 2 sulfur atoms yields good electrical conductivity. Essentially a circuit board made from C2H2S2 instead of gold. Story 22. Long-distance wireless power transmission. Space solar panels, here we come. Story 23. Energy-storing smart bricks that could one day turn the walls of our houses into batteries. Story 24. I would choose fusion power. Fusion is possible but remains in the research phase and often just out of reach. The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor being built in France should be able to produce 10 times more energy output than input. Additionally, researchers are continually discovering ways to miniaturize fusion devices. Imagine near limitless clean energy, with fossil fuels becoming redundant. Story 25. To be honest, if someone could create a smoke alarm that detects when I'm cooking, that would be great. Or at least one with a function that lets me yell, "I'm only cooking," and then return to standby. I would also be happy if it did not go off every time I cook a meal. Story 26. There is currently a drug in stage 2 of testing that will cure hearing loss and tinnitus by regrowing dead hair cells in the ear. Story 27. Deepfakes already exist and will only get better. They could reach the point where you see a video and cannot tell whether it is real. Story 28. Surprised no one is mentioning generative pre-trained Transformer 3. It is basically the closest thing we have to artificial intelligence right now. Story 29. Michael Reeves's surgery robot. Story 30. Psychedelics for mental disorders. We could see results as early as 2 to 3 years from now. It is not an invention per se, but it has significant potential. Story 31. There was a product from a company called Orogenics, an oral swab containing a modified bacterial strain that would replace the bacteria in the mouth. Normal oral bacteria produce acid that causes tooth decay, but the modified strain did not produce acid, so it would prevent cavities. The company also offered a daily pill, but they developed the swab as a potentially permanent solution. Although it was effective, regulatory obstacles prevented its release. The daily tablets are still available but are expensive. Story 32. Helium-3 is the only isotope with more protons than neutrons. It has a very high energy density and appears to be a promising energy source for the future. It releases large amounts of energy and is cleaner than conventional nuclear fuels. The problem is that it is very scarce on Earth. However, it is extremely plentiful on the Moon. 220 pounds of helium-3 is estimated to cost about $140 million, and about 25 tons could power the United States of America for a year. Story 33. Basically, the original poster is asking what relatively inexpensive stocks they should invest in so they can become wealthy in the future. Story 34. I feel that SpaceX's ability to reuse rockets does not receive enough attention. Lower costs to reach space will enable more space stations and could one day make construction of a megastructure possible. Think beyond the Reddit community. I would wager that most people do not know this achievement has occurred. Story 35. Car manufacturers have started installing a device in cars that indicates when the driver plans to turn or change lanes. It is called a turn signal, but most drivers call it the blinker. Not many people have adopted it yet, but when it becomes mainstream, it will make driving much simpler. Story 36. Suborbital flights will reduce intercontinental travel time by at least 40%. You could travel from Los Angeles to Lyon in about 3 hours or less. Interestingly, I am a medical student, but I suggested aerospace improvements. Story 37. Engineers at Johns Hopkins are developing prosthetics with a sense of touch. Story 38. Graphene is an ultra-thin form of graphite. It is highly flexible and strong and can be used in batteries for electric cars and other applications. Story 39. My biotechnology teacher showed us articles where scientists removed the inner contents of apple cells, leaving an empty cellular shell. They carved the shell into any shape, in this case an ear, and repopulate it with human cells. The human cells integrated and remodeled the shell into tissue resembling an ear. This could dramatically change surgery and medical treatment and is very exciting. Story 40. Instant injection for bullet wounds. A syringe is inserted into the wound and the pellets expand to 4 times their size, stopping the blood loss. Story 41. Lab-grown meat could greatly reduce environmental impact, be healthier, and ultimately much cheaper. We are suffering through coronavirus disease 2019 because someone wanted to eat a live bat. The subreddit Where's the Beef is about it. Story 42. The ram pump is an old invention with no moving parts that uses water pressure to pump water. Some have been operating for over 100 years and will continue to function until they become clogged or are destroyed. Story 43. Diamond nuclear voltaic nano-diamond batteries can last for years without recharging. Simply put, they recycle and convert nuclear waste radiation into electricity, making them an environmentally friendly green energy source. Only a fraction of nuclear waste is required to produce a single power cell. They are not harmful. They emit less radiation than the human body's natural background radiation and produce no heat. Their flexible structure enables many applications. Because they rely on nuclear radiation for power, they can last a lifetime. They can be used in small devices such as smartphones, laptops, and tablets, and in larger systems for automotive, aerospace, and medical applications. Imagine pacemakers that never need replacing. They could also advance quantum computing. This could be a game changer. References: Pre-Scouter article, Meet the inventor of nuclear waste-powered batteries. Wired article, Are radioactive diamond batteries a cure for nuclear waste? NDB Technology Applications page. Story 44. Honestly, I think augmented reality will be the real big change. Virtual reality gets all the love and attention. It is great for entertainment and for some business applications such as showing a concept or allowing someone to inspect something remotely. Those are important developments that will change things. But augmented reality will have an even larger impact. Can you imagine information appearing in your field of view as needed? Working on your car? The augmented reality system recognizes components and lets you pull up information about each part, how to unbolt it, how to replace it, how to order it, and how to diagnose issues. Working in a large plant? Augmented reality can display information about every piece of machinery you see. Hungry? Look down the street and see reviews and menus for every restaurant in view. At a party, facial recognition can identify people and provide background information. Performing surgery. You can see notes prepared ahead of time without leaving the room. The ability to overlay information, such as pictures, video, and text, onto the real world is powerful. We will not live inside virtual reality glasses our whole lives. Augmented reality is the next step beyond smartphones. Story 45. This is a 2-part technological combination: limestone calcium reactors and biomass gasification. It addresses several problems. Woody biomass waste that poses a wildfire hazard or is otherwise a nuisance, including dead and diseased trees, nutshells, pruned orchard limbs, vine canes from the wine industry, and offcuts from the lumber industry. This does not involve cutting down healthy trees. For your information, carbon capture and sequestration, ocean acidification, the need for renewable energy, loss of soil fertility. There is a need to draw down carbon from the atmosphere if we hope to maintain a livable planet, because without action we are on a trajectory toward catastrophic levels of warming, 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Direct industrial or chemical air capture of carbon dioxide is currently not cost-effective because the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is still too low for such processes to be efficient. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration is about 0.039%. Professor Greg Rao of the University of California, Santa Cruz showed how limestone waste, composed primarily of calcium carbonate, reacts readily with carbon dioxide dissolved in seawater to form calcium bicarbonate, which remains dissolved. As a mineral carbon sequestration method, this process is much faster than alternatives such as olivine weathering. Calcium bicarbonate reactors using limestone are already used by mollusk farmers to increase calcium saturation in water and to counter ocean acidification caused by dissolved carbon dioxide. Using limestone waste from quarry activity could potentially remove a very large portion of industrial carbon dioxide emissions and store it safely in the ocean. Oceanic diatoms would use the dissolved carbonate to form shells, and the settling of microscopic shells to the seafloor would sequester carbon for thousands to millions of years. The barrier to this approach is the low concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. A concentrated source of carbon dioxide is needed for the reactors to be cost-effective. Emissions from biomass power generation can provide that concentrated, atmosphere-derived carbon dioxide. Plants draw down large amounts of carbon from the atmosphere when they grow. This seasonal uptake is visible in the annual downward swings of the Keeling curve. The decay of biomass and uncontrolled wildfires return that carbon to the atmosphere, and combined with fossil fuel emissions, atmospheric carbon dioxide steadily increases. Biomass gasification converts biomass into clean-burning carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas, which can be used in an internal combustion engine to generate power. Gasification is distinct from incineration, direct combustion, or simple pyrolysis. Emissions from a biomass gasifier generator set of this type are about 18% carbon dioxide, roughly 460 times more concentrated than atmospheric carbon dioxide, but all of the carbon in these emissions was originally drawn from the atmosphere by plants. Feeding the concentrated biomass gasifier emissions into a limestone calcium reactor would provide the carbon dioxide concentration required for efficient mineral sequestration. Biomass gasification also produces charcoal as a byproduct. The carbon in charcoal is resistant to decomposition and does not revert to carbon dioxide unless combusted. If this charcoal is used as biochar, a soil amendment typically mixed into compost before application to soil, the process amounts to a form of reverse coal mining, capturing atmospheric carbon in plants and converting part of it into solid stable carbon that is buried in soil. When biochar is added during composting, the process releases much less methane because methanotrophs are favored over methanogens, and production of nitrous oxide, a potent and long-lived greenhouse gas, is significantly reduced. When this compost is added to soil, it triggers biological cascades that increase long-term soil carbon storage, including higher levels of root exudates and increased fungal biomass. Arbuscular mycorrhizae are of particular interest because they produce glomalin, a glycoprotein that stores a large portion of soil carbon. These processes also improve soil resilience, drought resistance, and fertility. This combination of biomass gasification, limestone calcium reactors, and biochar-amended composting leverages plant photosynthesis to capture atmospheric carbon, produces renewable energy, and enables stable long-term carbon storage in soils and the ocean. In my view, it represents one of the most promising pathways for reducing atmospheric and oceanic carbon resulting from human activities. If you are well-resourced and interested in advancing this carbon capture and climate restoration approach, please contact me. Story 46. Nanorobotics and quantum computers will probably transform the world, revolutionizing the personal computer and cryptography industries. Story 47. Smart contracts will do to finance what the internet did for the flow of information. Most banks operate on islands with their own software architectures and products, which reduces competition and gives virtually no power to average customers unless they are very wealthy. Smart contracts are stored and executed on a blockchain similar to Bitcoin, although smart contracts are different, making them immutable and generally permissionless. With smart contracts, lending, borrowing, savings accounts, and investing can be done in a decentralized, open, and censorship-resistant way where everyone is generally on an equal footing. You receive the same interest rate on a lending protocol, for example, the Maker decentralized autonomous organization on the Ethereum blockchain, regardless of whether you have $1 billion or $100. We have not even discussed the potential of smart contracts to revolutionize law, for example, smart contract-based wills that are verifiable and tamper-proof, or government with decentralized autonomous organizations. Story 48. I'm not sure if this counts as a technological invention, but there is research using the Yamanaka factors. You may have heard of them a few years ago for their use in reprogramming regular cells into stem cells. Currently, using a combination of gene transcription factors, scientists have been able to drastically reduce the epigenetic age of cells. The epigenome determines how different cells express their genes and can be used to estimate the biological age of cells and organisms fairly accurately. Recently, scientists reduced the age of cells in the optic nerve of mice to a point where they could start replicating again, a trait usually lost a few days after birth. This allowed a blind mouse to see again. In the short term, this technology could be used to heal nerve cells, potentially allowing people with paralysis to walk again. In the longer term, it could stop or even reverse aging. Story 49. Vibration-powered generators. Imagine life-sustaining implants powered by your heartbeat and breathing. Street lamps powered by traffic and wind. Reclaiming lost power from high-intensity industries such as construction and manufacturing. Sound dampening systems that generate electricity along highways and major thoroughfares. Every power source has a peak efficiency, and beyond that there is energy loss. Systems like these could recover some of that loss for productive use. Story 50. A Raspberry Pi is a computer the size of a credit card. Several models have already been released, but it remains relatively unknown. I have a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus and a Raspberry Pi 4. The Raspberry Pi 4 is as capable as a Chromebook, and all Raspberry Pi 4 models cost less than $100. Soon you will be able to have a decent computer like this in addition to your phone. Story 51. The turn signal. Once it catches on and becomes commonly used, it will make a huge difference. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.